Great to be with you, Randy. It's been a while.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for making the time and for joining us. I'm sure this will be fantastic. So everybody, we have today episode 159, Mohamad Ali, who is the Chief Operating Officer of the monster IBM Consulting, who's really on to doing some cool new things. The title topic is how generative AI is disrupting the IT consulting industry as we know it. For those that are members of Sales Community, thanks. Tucker, you can maybe put the free link on. You can go to salescommunity.com/whatever is winter free, get a free membership. And I've got lots of great tech industry leaders on there on our advisory board. Mohamad, thank you, and others. We're also sponsored by Alexander Group, who's the go-to-market and sales comp sponsor of Sales Community. And Mohamad, I think you said you had know Alexander Group and used them back in your IDG days?
I do, yeah.
Excellent. I assume it was good, worthwhile, helpful?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So Mohamad lives in the Boston area in Arlington. And we had originally met back when he was Chief Strategy Officer at HP. And then I think after I left, your chartered was splitting the company and I think helping get in place $13 billion or so of cost savings initiatives. But certainly, I'd say for a strategy person, take this as a compliment. Mohamad was always kind of very hands-on. He could get in the weeds. Typically, a lot of strategy people, no pun intended, are kind of in the clouds and kind of have these ideas which aren't necessarily built in kind of fact or what reality could be. And I always found Mohamad to be very, very practical and helpful and useful. So perception's reality, great experience. For sure. And also have some nice intro comments from some mutual friends. BJ Jenkins, who's president of Palo Alto, says, I've had the opportunity to work with Mohamad as a competitor and as a partner. So competitor when you were at Carbonite and he was at Barracuda. First word I would use is respect for everything he does. The second is I love being a partner now with him rather than being a competitor.
I do as well.
There you go.
He's a great partner, by the way.
He's a great leader, driven by doing big, impactful things. He thinks big, is a strong communicator who delivers on what he says. And finally, he's driven to delivering outcomes for customers. It's an honor and pleasure to work with him. From Crawford Del Pret, who's a long time, looked at, I think he's almost 35 years with IDC, IDG, and great leader himself, says Mohamad is a key player in the worldwide and Boston tech scene. He's held CEO positions, Carbonite, IGG, also serves on the board of iRobot, Oxfam, and he didn't include it, but also Henry Schein. And so you actually a iRobot customer as well?
I'm a big iRobot customer. I have 7 of these Roombas.
Oh, nice. Perfect. He goes on to say at IDG, he led a key chapter of the company's transformation from digital media to an intent-based marketing company. At IDC, he oversaw the investment in next-generation data with the creation of its graph database, the knowledge platform, which allows tech companies to quickly target new markets for growth. Now at IBM, he's enabling customers to think about how to intelligently scale their businesses with AI. He's also a great human, championing important causes such as diversity, inclusion, and equity. And finally, from Dave Donatelli, who we worked with at HP, now CEO of Riverbed, says Mohamad is a great guy and versatile leader, universally liked by all people he works with. Mohamad was equally adept at managing strategy for HP and as CEO of industry stalwart IDC, and now running consulting for IBM Consulting. So
very kind of you.
There you go.
Good, and you know, when it comes from Dave, it's honest, right? Because he doesn't give you a compliment. He's serious about it.
Right? Yes, exactly. Well said.
He has to. Right?
Yeah. Well
Dave's
said.
Great. Love him.
It's really good. So anyway, IBM Consulting, so massive organization, 160,000 consultants. So if you can kind of briefly, which is hard to do, kind of explain what IBM Consulting does.
Sure, no, happy to. So IBM Consulting is sort of a full service IT organization, right? So we do everything from help you determine your strategy for building your new app to figuring out how to standardize on SAP, you know, wide range of projects, right? Sort of the concept phase. Then we'll help you implement it. We'll write the code, we'll test the code, we'll deploy the code, and then at times we'll help you run it, on an ongoing relationship. And so, it's sort of soup to nuts. And of course, recently we've been deploying Gen AI to improve all aspects of that. We actually have a methodology called the IBM Garage that allows us to, do these workshops at the beginning to figure out, well, what are the valuable things for you to build? Yeah, we know you want to build an app, but what are the valuable aspects, the things that are going to drive your business? And so we sort of co-create that, and then we go and co-build it, and then we go and co-operate it, right? So those are that's the garage methodology, and it covers sort of end to end what we do for clients. Of course, we have to do all those nuts and bolts things that every services company has to do, but that's the business.
Wow, that's very impressive. And we'll chime in here as we get comments and questions. Ken Growe, I was mentioning in our prep, runs sales at Taos, one of the IBM divisions. And he says, wow, since Mohamad joined IBM Consulting, our customers have witnessed improved customer centricity and speed. Hashtag all gas, no brakes.
Right. Well, actually, so I'm really glad that Ken mentioned that, and I really can't take credit for it, right? So I get here a little over 4.5 months ago, and I realized I'd stumbled onto a gem. It turns out that IBM Consulting for the last 2 quarters has been the fastest growing large consulting business on the planet. And
wow.
I mean, I tell you, when I left here 15 years ago, I can say that, right? There were some fierce competition. And now I happen to be part of an organization that is performing extraordinarily well. And as Ken says, it's really all gas, no brakes. And it's really only going to accelerate with Gen AI.
There you go. Is that an IBM saying, or is that something Ken just made up?
I don't know, but I like it.
There you go. All right. Perfect. Now, from a scale perspective, I mean, you've got some of your customers are hundreds of millions of dollars, these projects, correct?
Yeah. That's pretty common.
Wow, that's amazing. And from a selling perspective, I mean, far different than a Carbonite sales process where you might have a one call close. I mean, this is kind of a massive. You really need to kind of invest in some of these sales cycles. So maybe you can kind of touch on the sales process.
Sure, Randy. You're a sales expert, right? I've always gone to you for advice on a variety of things, and that different businesses have very different sales motions. So at Carbonite, it was a $59.99 per year product. It was D2C, right? So the sales tactics, how customers buy, were completely different. Here, we're doing massive projects, and I'll tell you about one of those projects, and you'll get a sense. So we recently announced that our team, IBM Consulting, had been selected to provide all the cybersecurity for NATO. And this is NATO, right? It's like a pretty serious organization protecting the world, and we're going to be doing that for them and with them. That doesn't happen overnight. It takes years of relationship building. I mean, in some cases, it takes decades of experience with each other, right? And in this case, IBM's been doing security in government and sensitive areas for a long time. They trust us. We get a chance to engage. There's very long definition of what the scope should be. There's back and forth. I mean, these things, a sales cycle of 12 months for something like that, could be on the short side, right? I mean, these are elongated sales cycle. They require a lot of touch points, and some of the things that you've taught me over the years, we definitely apply in these types of engagement.
Wow, massive. And at the same time, too, I mean, you have to kind of figure out which ones you're not going to pursue based on a bunch of different criteria. But I mean, some of these the NATO pursuit is an example from, if you could say, from the time you first started courting them or talking to them until you got kind of the order. How long was that?
I don't know exactly, but I'm betting that it's somewhere between a year and 2 years.
Right? Think about that. Yeah, that's amazing for sure. And then from a recruiting perspective, are there kind of openings that you have in case you want to do a little commercial?
Absolutely. I mean, we're always looking for great people. One of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm heavily focused on expanding our cybersecurity business. Right, we have a very, very strong cyber business. As I mentioned, things like NATO. We just did this partnership with Palo Alto Networks and got a chance to finally work with BJ as opposed to work against BJ. And we're recruiting pretty heavily for that business. I'm also building out an asset-based consulting capability, and we're recruiting people who can help us build those assets. And of course, in every one of our practices, our SAP practice, our Azure practice, our AWS practice, our GCP practice, our Oracle practice, our Salesforce practice, they're all growing, and we're recruiting accordingly.
So your headcount round numbers, I think, is about 160,000. When I was at HP, I think I had 4,000. I thought that was a lot. How the heck do you manage and lead 160,000 folks?
Well, you don't have to manage them all, right? I mean, you have a management team, and you rely on them to do a good job. You hire the best people, and luckily, I've been able to, come in and work with some great people. But to your earlier point, we're also hiring. We just got the acceptance from a leader that we'll announce over the next 2 months. Just amazing leader. He'll be working for me, and I have to say that the strong growth that IBM Consulting has been seeing over the last few quarters attracts people, right? I mean, people are calling us; they want to come join us, and so it's been great. But in terms of management, you have to rely on having talented leaders work with you, and that's what I do.
Oh, that's great. I guess given Elon Musk's AI public initiatives, he'd be probably well served to kind of park it with IBM Consulting.
If Elon wants to do more work with us, we're happy to.
Perfect. Now you have a new offering called IBM Consulting Advantage, which is an AI services platform and library of assistants to empower the consultants. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's no surprise to everybody that AI is changing pretty much every aspect of our lives, right? From simple things like being able to craft an email to looking at security logs and quickly identifying what's an intrusion, right? So across the board. So naturally, our clients, and our clients are some of the world's largest companies, some of the most sophisticated governments and institutions. They've come to us and they've said, well, we want to determine how to leverage Gen AI for some of our business processes. And so we've been helping them with that. I mean, we have several hundred pilots that we've been doing. Some have gone to production. And if you think about the market out there, we're not the only ones. We're not the only consulting company that's helping these clients, right? So all of our competitors are doing the same thing. So there are literally thousands of these Gen AI pilots. And one of the things that when I got involved in this, almost 5 months ago, I realized that every one of these is being done a little bit differently, and this could be a problem. Like, we need to bring consistency to this, and a big part of why we need to bring consistency to this is because um, it's not just about building these great solutions that'll take out 50% cost or 30% cost or 80% cost. You need to secure them. You need to govern them so they do what they're supposed to do. These are AI things, right? You need to protect personal information. You have to check for bias. And so as a result, we decided to build IBM Consulting Advantage, which is a consistent approach to building these solutions that 160,000 consultants and engineers can use. And so that was sort of the idea behind it. And as you mentioned, we just recently announced it.
That's great. So the whole generative AI initiative that you're driving there with IBM Consulting obviously has had impressive growth rates already, but you're really, you don't think of IBM as kind of, I'd say, breaking glass, right? But you're really breaking glass, disrupting this industry.
Yeah, I mean, this industry is going to change. It's going to change dramatically. Like, the consulting market, the services market, is not going to stay this heavy labor-based, manual, manually configured, project plan-oriented business through this Gen AI transition. It's going to change. I don't think anybody knows exactly how it's going to change, but it's going to be highly disruptive. In the same way, Uber's disrupted the taxi business, Gen AI in some form is going to disrupt the consulting business. And so what we're trying to do is get ahead of it, right? Why not use some of these technologies to disrupt the way we operate and get to a point where we're operating far more efficiently? There'll be a lot of ups and downs through this. And I think what we can't do is pretend it's not going to happen. So we've decided that it's going to happen, and we're going to do everything we can to move as fast as possible and lead.
Oh, that's amazing. And for those watching along or listening along, feel free to chime in with any other kind of comments or questions as well. And we got Tucker behind the scenes as always. So thanks, Tucker. He'll pull them up. So with all this, I mean, the productivity improvements are just massive, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing, in some of the projects that we're doing, we're seeing just extraordinary productivity improvements. But it's not just us. If you our competitors are seeing the same thing. What they're doing. Our clients who are experimenting themselves are seeing the same thing. So, I'll give you an example. So, a large national organization that provides healthcare to its citizens came to us and said, "Hey, we have this app, and our citizens use this app to schedule a doctor's appointment, to sign up for vaccines, et cetera, et cetera. And we would like this app. And if they can't get the thing done on the app, then they have to call us. So we would like you to help us use Gen AI to improve the conversion rate or the task completion on the app, so that it deflects these phone calls to us." And so we said, "Okay, we'll go build that for you, because it's a long time existing client, and that's what we do for them." And so we said, "But can we just try something? We're gonna have two teams build this. We're gonna have a team, and that team we're gonna do it the traditional way. It's be labor based. They're gonna use traditional tools. And this other team, they're gonna have all those regular tools, but we're gonna give them 4 Gen AI assistants, right? And let's see what the difference is." And so the 4 Gen AI assistants that we gave them, and these 4 Gen AI assistants live in IBM Consulting Advantage. They are, within the IBM Consulting Assistants subcategory there. So the 4 were,
and they work 7x24.
They do, yes, right? Yes, even they don't even need coffee breaks. So what we did was we took these 4 and we paired them with 4 categories of engineering. So the first category was the person who was doing the persona design. So, if you're building this app and it's going to be used by these citizens, some of the citizens could be, a young woman, another citizen could be an older man. A third could be somebody with, extraordinary health issues, right? Different personas. So we have this assistant that one of our engineers uses and says, here's the app we're trying to build. Can you please generate the personas? And it generates the personas. Then you switch to another assistant and you cut and paste one of those personas into it. And that assistant is the user story assistant. So for this persona, what are the user stories? And it generates the user stories. Now, of course, we still have to have an engineer that looks at this and says, yes, that makes sense.
Right.
But once that's okay, then you switch to a third assistant. And you say, here, take this user story and generate the Python code. And it generates the Python code. And you check it, make sure it's right. And then you go to a fourth assistant. And that assistant is a unit test assistant. And so you cut the code and you put it in there and it generates the unit test. Of course, you've got to check it. When we did this side by side, the team that used the 4 IBM Consulting Assistants did it in 52% less time than the first team, and the quality was identical. And so, those are the kinds, you're not going to see this on every use case, right? In some use cases, you'll get 5% productivity improved, some you'll get 90, but for that particular one, we saw this. And so I don't think it's just us seeing this, like a lot of people are seeing this. And so now the question going into 2024 is, how do you take these types of pilots and scale them?
Yeah. So going into production, then obviously you have the security governance issues. So any other kind of issues or concerns in not having more production?
Yeah. So security, governance, PII bias is a big issue, huge issue. There's also another issue, cost, right? We'll get to that in a minute. But in terms of the security issue, IBM does, as you know, right? You are at HP. Like our companies do these studies. We love these studies. So we go out and we survey all these CEOs and CXOs. And so a very large sample set, we asked the question. We asked this question about security and AI. And so 98% of them, 98% said that they expect that with Gen AI, there'll be a higher likelihood of a security breach over the next 3 years. And then almost 70% of them said that even with that risk, we're going to do it anyway, right? We're going to do it anyway. And it makes sense because they can't not take those productivity gains, right? Because some smaller company is going to come along using those productivity gains and put them out of business. So for some companies, it could be an existential question here. So they're going to do it anyway, and then we're going to have to help them secure it. And so that's why, we have these partnerships with Palo Alto and others in order to build the right security framework around the Gen AI. So inside of IBM Consulting Advantage, we are embedding some of these best practices around security, around governance, around bias protection, PII protection, et cetera. So that's a very, very important category in order to be able to scale this. Of course, I'm sure you've heard, Randy, that using all these tokens could be expensive, and that's a second part of what we're working with clients on.
Perfect. So we have from a LinkedIn user, it really does feel like we're at the cusp of the AI revolution, or maybe it's already here, probably already here. Mohamad, loved hearing about the hospital app use case. As a sales rep, I have to ask, can you share what kind of AI and sales initiatives is IBM Consulting innovating on? As a side note, I've got Jen Quinlan coming on end of March, so I think she handles some of this as well.
Yeah, so great question. So of course, we have what we call a customer transformation practice, and that's where we help clients deploy things like Salesforce and other customer engagement tools and methodologies. And as you know, we've been collaborating with Salesforce for quite some time now as we do these, IBM Consulting do these deployments. We have access to a wide variety of AI tools and techniques to supplement the Salesforce deployment, right? So Salesforce has native capabilities in Einstein, right? But then, we also build these, you know, these specialized capabilities to add to Salesforce, right? Because a client might come along and say, hey, this is great, but I really need something smart to look at all the touch points that we have and match it up to the buyer team at the company, right? Because as Randy, as you know, for some of these complex deals, you're not selling to one person. You're selling to an entire buyer team of maybe 17, 20 people, right? So how do you build a smart Gen AI? So we might use Llama, from Meta as the foundation model to build such a capability. We might use Granite from IBM Watson X. We might use something from Amazon, like whatever the right foundation model is for that particular use case, we'll bring that to the table. So in some ways, we're sort of deploying hybrid AI to bring these smart models and build applications, mini applications on top of them that we call assistants, and then plugging those assistants into the platform. And in this case, it's the Salesforce platform or whatever your go-to-market platform is. So that's how we're applying it. And it's a great question because, as you know, I think Randy and I think some of the audience member knows, customer engagement is a ripe opportunity for Gen AI. All the way from, how do you send emails that you have higher open rates on, to how you do more sophisticated things like that example I gave of the entire buying team at the client.
Yeah, wow, amazing. And just moving on here, just fantastic there on the whole disruption there in the consulting industry for sure. But you're in the Middle East last week. You mean just tons of money flowing in. It's almost like so if you think about startup companies disrupting the tech world, it's almost like the Middle East with all the money is kind of disrupting just traditional countries and structures and what they're doing and how they're doing it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I tell you, the Middle East has become a pretty remarkable area. I was in Riyadh and Dubai, and if you think about Dubai, it wasn't that long ago that the United Arab Emirates was basically a pearl diving town, right? That was their economy, and it actually was really tough because at some point the Japanese created artificial pearl, and their economy just tanked. And then they had to figure out what to do. And Dubai, in particular, wasn't necessarily sitting in a whole lot of oil like Abu Dhabi. And so Dubai had to reinvent itself. And you've been there, Randy. I mean, it is a pretty remarkable place. And they pride themselves on having the tallest thing and the most extravagant structures and buildings and restaurants and so forth. They also are leaning in heavily on technology, and everywhere you go, there's new technology. They're willing to invest, and in some ways, it's a showcase, right? It's a trial location for a lot of the technology that that our companies create. And Saudi Arabia is sort of becoming like that, right? They're building this brand new city called Neom, that is a linear city. It's remarkable, and they're willing to try all these pieces of technology. And of course, you need companies that have a lot of experience to do this in a responsible way, because it's very easy to do things that become highly problematic, that have security issues, that violate a variety of standards. And so, we've been working with them not just to bring the technology to the applications, but also do so in a responsible way.
Wow, amazing. And Ken follows up here. I don't know what your thoughts are, but saying that within large companies, the first kind of AI play is usually within kind of marketing or the HR functions. Do you find that the case?
Yeah. So for us, there are really three big categories. So customer transformation, which is this area that Ken just mentioned. The second is employee experience. we've actually seen we've even within IBM we've deployed a fair amount of AI technology. We have something called Ask HR, where you can do simple transaction like transfer an employee from one manager to another manager, which used to take like a bunch of time to go into a work day or whatever, and move the employee. Now you could just chat with Ask HR, and it does it. That we now complete about 92% of our HR transaction through Ask HR. So the second category being employee engagement, and then the third area that we've seen a lot of growth has been in code generation, right? And so the example I gave you about the app development for that medical company or medical entity or healthcare entity, sorry, that was a code development opportunity. And so that area, I think, is going to continue to see a lot of growth.
Wow, amazing. What about any mentors that you've had along the way, or specific advice, if there's kind of one or two that stick with you?
Yeah. So, Randy, I've been really, really lucky to have great managers. And so, what I'd say to people at whatever point in your career you are, if you don't have a great manager, go find a great manager. And in some ways, that's why I came back to IBM. I mean, Arvind Krishna, who's now CEO, and I were peers for 4 years. I know he's a great manager. And so working for somebody like that, I know we're going to make progress.
Wow, fantastic there for sure. What about any advice you'd give to your younger self? Not that you're not young, of course.
Well, my younger self, I have to say that when I was younger, I took things a little too seriously, and I was too worried about internal politics and this sort of thing. And at the end of the day, I think if you just focus on doing a great job and love what you do, you'll do well. And these things that cause you stress, in any organization, there are these individuals that you go home and you just can't stop thinking about it, and you stew over it, and you write an email that you shouldn't write, right? Just avoid all that stuff. And it's a lot easier to say now that I'm on this side.
Right.
And when I was younger, it was hard to do. But I have to say there was really no value in those things, and they really distracted. And at times I've seen those kinds of things really derail people who are really, really good people. And you want to focus on what you do well and leave everything else behind.
Yeah, so you're obviously trying to kind of, I'll say, speed up the pace with IBM Consulting. Any large organization, things always takes a long time to get done. People complain. No, I'm not saying IBM Consulting, but just big companies in general. So any things that you're trying to do culturally to kind of get things moving, faster and better?
Yeah, Randy, as I said, I've been lucky to come into an organization that is that is growing, that is now, the fastest growing consulting company. So there's a lot of energy, a lot of momentum, a lot of willingness. The IBM Consulting organization is sort of a high energy place. And I love that. I mean, I'm a high energy person. I want to be amongst high energy people. And so I was actually quite surprised that we were able to get the IBM Consulting Advantage platform not only developed, but launched in a short period of time, right? I've only been here for about 5 months. And, just earlier today, I looked at the development roadmap for it and all the releases. And it's incredible how much we're adding and the pace that we're adding it to. So I think the Consulting Advantage platform, though, is going to drive this whole series of cultural change in that, whereas we used to do things, I think you could say a lot more bespoke, we're gonna need to standardize, because now we're dealing with generative AI, and not everybody's going to know how to control generative AI. And so IBM Consulting Advantage is a mechanism for doing that, and that will drive a bunch of cultural change.
Wow, that's great. Excuse me. It's usually my last question. I meant to do this in our prep, so you may not have any, but I always like to say if there's any PG Randy story that you have.
PG Randy story. I have to say, like, I always loved every conversation I had with Randy. Not only because I learned stuff, but Randy, you're always sort of pushing the envelope, right? And so, I I don't have any like dirty things to share with the audience here, right? But but I have to say, I've learned a lot from you. Thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Kind compliment. So time flies when you're having fun. Mohamad, you've been fantastic. Tucker, thanks for your help behind the scenes. And also shout out to Clay for helping us. Next week, we're going to have a little different different side from the 160,000 person organization, but Richard Harris, who's a awesome sales expert, has got a great book, The Seller's Journey. Your guidebook to closing more deals with neat selling, as he calls it. So we'll be able to discuss that and find out more about it. Thanks to Alexander Group, who's our sponsor for today. And thanks for those that are members of Sales Community. If you're not, go join. All right, Mohamad, thanks. Really appreciate it. And everybody have a great day.